Hey guys, we're actually back.
Hello,
It's Shirley.
and Rachel, and we're back with Podcasa Bonita. Not really though, because this is the Q&A episode.
We felt really guilty of only doing this once a year because seasons only come out once a year. But we actually really enjoy doing this and want an excuse to do it again more than just once a year. So this is our, I'm sorry gift to you guys. We're doing a Q&A episode, also kind of like a life update because things are happening now, and now we really don't have an excuse to not make Podcasa Bonita. So, welcome back.
Yeah, literally, which one of our fans released coronavirus into the world? So we would get quarantined and have to record this podcast.
One of you fuckers ain't back.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, Shirley pretty much hit the nail on the head. This is like kind of a life update, but also we're going to answer some questions in this little mini episode because we had some of you, some of our lovely fans, give us some questions last year, but they're kind of a lot of questions, and it's going to take us a little bit. So instead of just tacking on to the end of the new podcast, we thought we'd just do our own episode for it.
We're calling this a mini-sode, but knowing us and how much we like to talk, watch it be like an hour when we're done editing, maybe not. But, we got a lot of questions, and we didn't think it would quite fit into doing season 23, so let us know in the comments if you guys want us to kind of keep up with this format and have like a couple Q&As because we really like these. You guys came up with some really awesome questions, all two of you. And, we love hearing them. It sounds weird us saying like fans, but honestly, even though you guys are kind of few and far between, you mean a lot to us, and it makes us really excited that you're asking us questions. So before we get to those, we'll give you the boring life update and get that out of the way. Another reason why we haven't been posting as much, just, excluding the obvious with the seasons and everything. I'm in my senior year of college, and I got a new job. Rachel and I both have big girl jobs now, so sometimes it's hard to do things that don't pay us directly. Unless we're going to get that sweet, sweet ad revenue, never. Do you think we'll get a NordVPN sponsorship or a Skillshare sponsorship anytime soon?
No, probably not, but you know what we could do is we could set up a Patreon and have our fans pay us and bribe us into recording episodes.
Can't definitively say that anything we would reward you guys with would be good, but
or worth it at all.
Nothing that we post is what we think is good. We're just here dicking around and having fun, which is maybe what you guys like.
Speaking of posting, we kind of are planning on getting our shit together, hopefully. We have a few more ideas for videos planned so that we won't be recording only once a year. So hopefully that's something you guys are excited about. What kind of videos are we going to be recording, Shirley?
Well, obviously we're going to be doing season 23. I'm pretty sure we're just going to be recording that right after we finish the Q&A, but those will be two separate episodes. And we're also really close to recording our video game episode. So this video game episode will really only include Stick of Truth and the Fractured Butthole because personally those are the only ones I've played and the only ones that I can play. And I really love them. I'm excited to talk about them. Maybe we'll have a special guest star on that as well, aka my sister again, because she's played it a lot more than I have. But we'll be talking about those two games. It's not going to be like a Let's Play or anything, because, one, we're not that skilled at editing, and I'm not that good at video games.
Excuse you. I'm the one who edits these, you bitch.
Okay. Well, I'm not good at editing, and I'm the one playing these games. So, I guess that's all that really matters. But there is already a lot of Let's Plays, I feel like, on this game. Not that we're offering anything new to the table, but we'll probably a nice commentary kind of / review video It's something that we've been wanting to do for a while for the games, but now that I've actually played them and experienced them firsthand, we'll be able to do that. Any more videos you want to sneak peek, Rachel?
Yeah, I thought we could possibly do a Halloween episode countdown, kind of like we did for the Christmas episode. So maybe expect that in October. I don't know. I also have an episode kind of coming up regarding South Park and how it handles a certain issue. So keep an eye out for that one.
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure you guys will know the issue when we get to a certain episode in season 23. But for now, we're just kind of being dicks and teasing you about it. But again, also, not just like regular questions. Feel free to give us suggestions, because Lord knows we're not creative enough to think of things on our own.
It's very true.
Like, these took us like 3 years to think of, okay? And it's only like 4 ideas, so...
Yeah, we're gonna run out of new content real quick.
That's what happens when only one season comes out per year and there are only 10 episodes.
Yeah, this is Matt and Trey's fault, actually.
It is actually their fault. It is their fault.
Alright, so do you want to dive right into the questions?
Let's dive into these questions. I'm really excited about them.
Okay, our first question is one that I got anonymously through my Tumblr, which is, when are you guys going to do Podcasa Bonita season 23?
That's coming today. And hopefully it will be uploaded around the same time as this Q&A. Surprise, surprise, a lot of our questions follow this kind of format. When is this episode coming out? When are we posting again? And the answer is right now.
Also, not to put you on blast, Shirley, but why did it take so long for us to release this episode?
You're really going to do this to me, aren't you? You're really going to hurt me like this. Okay, so it took a long time. And this is a kind of a question. It makes me sound kind of like an ass, which I am. But the thing is, we were actually joking about this before we got on and started recording. But probably the most difficult thing about this podcast is the reason why we do this podcast, which is watching the episodes. So, like I mentioned before in my little life update, I have a new job, and I'm a senior in college right now trying to apply for a master's degree. So it's my life has been a little bit busy. Rachel's actually really good at managing her time, so she's got notes on the episodes. I had to rewatch them these past couple days because I didn't remember diddly shit.
Plus I was ready to go in December.
I was very much not. And also, my partner returned from Afghanistan, not too long ago, so that's been a whole nother transition and everything. But again, we love actually recording. That's my favorite part about this. I love talking about it. The hardest part is actually sitting down and analyzing every single episode while being completely dedicated to watching it. Not that I don't enjoy watching episodes. It's just I have to do adult things and with my adult life that I don't enjoy. But with this quarantine shit, I guess I don't have an excuse anymore. But yeah, it's my fault. It's okay. You can blame me.
Yeah, I kind of get what you mean though, because it is funny that we started this podcast basically as an excuse to watch South Park and talk about it, and now we're like, ugh, watching South Park is the worst part of this whole thing. Not that we don't love it, because we do, but it is very different when you're watching it for entertainment versus watching it for the podcast, where you have to pay attention, and for me, I have to take notes and really kind of dedicate my whole attention to the whole thing. Because I always watch South Park as it airs, and then I have to watch it again right after the whole season so I can take notes on it. So
exactly, and it's still a major part of the podcast. Of course, it's the whole reason why we do it, and we do love watching the episodes. But like Rachel said, it is a completely different viewing experience when you're just watching it, in the background versus having to actively analyze it and everything. Look at me sounding like we actually put effort into this.
like we do anything.
We do anything at all. All we do is talk about things. Like, I'll be honest, I just finished rewatching the episodes yesterday, and it's still a little bit cloudy. Is that my fault or the season's fault? You be the judge of that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so it's been a little bit difficult, but now that our lives are kind of settling, at least mine is slightly. Rachel's already graduated. She's already moved on. You've already moved on. As soon as, like, our lives kind of settle, hopefully they do, we're really anticipating recording more, especially now that we're trying to create content that isn't just analyzing episodes. You know, we don't just have to go by episode, you know, which is another reason why we're kind of not really doing a Let's Play version of our video game episode. It's just going to allow us to, you know, have more time to actually talk about it rather than just looking at the screen and all that jazz. Sorry about the dog barking. That's a piece of shit chihuahua that we're fostering right now, and I hate her.
I have my dog in the room with me, but he hasn't made a peep because he's an angel.
I don't have a single dog that is an angel. All of them are actively awful, and I love every single one of them.
Alright, you want to go into the rest of the questions?
Let's actually answer the questions.
Yeah, because we've been recording for like 10 minutes and we only answered one of them.
So, we told you guys it wasn't going to be a mini-sode like we thought.
Okay, so all the questions we got were from two separate viewers, fans, I don't know, on our podcast from last year. The first bundle of questions comes from MO 2018. Thank you very much. And the first question is, why do Kenny, Stan, and Kyle still hang out with Cartman when they all hate him and vice versa? Do they have a reason, or is it just continuity reset? I believe you and I have kind of talked about this before. I think someone's asked us this before.
They've asked something kind of similar, I think. I know we've definitely talked about Cartman as a character himself, but I don't really think this question raises a really good thing that we haven't quite talked about, which is writing techniques. So 100% yes, like, Cartman is used as a writing technique. That's one of the appeals I personally find of his character. It's not like bluntly in your face, like he's just a technique, but that generally is what he's used. He's meant to be a source of conflict, and he's also meant to be a way to present ethical and moral issues that this show wants to talk about. And that's why he and Kyle are such great foils for each other, because Kyle is the kind of like the spokesperson for the show with the message, while he's kind of the solution to the problems that Cartman presents, in a way. And that's not always Kyle's role. A lot of the times it's other characters, but when you think about that dynamic, it's usually Kyle and Cartman. But he's not only a stylistic choice, but that's definitely a good part of his role, and I think that's why he's such a successful character, because he can play a writing role in a way that isn't too blunt and obvious sometimes. And he's allowed to personify certain touchy issues.
Yeah, definitely. I think you summarized it pretty well from a writer's standpoint. I mean, from entry, it's like, well, these are the boys. This is the formula that we've had since 1997, and that's and they kind of just have the boys hang out with Cartman for fuel for more funny stuff to happen. But I guess, I don't know, an in-universe explanation of why the boys still hang out with him, I guess it's better to deal with the devil you know than the one you don't, I guess. Especially, and I especially love, like, kind of the commentary where it's like, well, when you're a kid and you grow up in the same place, especially if that place is like a hick small town, you kind of just hang out with the same 10 people for like forever and ever. And then once you get older, you broaden your horizons. So I feel like the boys probably just hang out with Cartman because that's what they've always done. What are they going to do? Do something different? I don't think so.
I also think it plays a little bit to the boys' like actual childlike nature, because you know, in order to suspend a little bit of belief, sometimes these boys are put into, a lot of the times these boys are put into a very adult situation, and you know, that's part of the appeal of South Park, is looking at the kind of the macabre of children speaking somewhat like adults and very young adults. But I think them still hanging out with Cartman, just on an analysis type point, is kind of relates a little bit to them really being like children. You know, when you're a kid, sometimes you just hang out with people. You know, you don't really think about them being super problematic or anything. Of course, Kyle does, but I think they just hang out, and it really it keeps them children in a way. It keeps them grounded in the actual age that they are, because they do rip on each other. That's a big part of their childhood, is kind of ripping on people, and it's really a form of socialization. Not to get all sociologist-ish.
Do it.
But it's really like a common thing to happen when you're socialized, especially as children. Your peers, you know, you have conflict between your peers, kind of as a way to teach you. So I think it's a really good way of writing them, and, you know, at a writer's perspective, but also just to keep them grounded as children. You know, they're very still kid-like. You know, you will have kids ripping on each other. It's almost like an enjoyment. It's a part of life at that point. So I think that answers the question probably way more intensely than what was anticipated, but we like talking about this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, excuse you, I still have more to say, but I also, like, kind of kind of going off your thing where you talk about them being kids, it also is probably just easier, especially because I think if you look at the maps from the games, like, they all just live right next door to each other, and they're like 10, and they have no other modes of transportation, so it's like, what am I supposed to do, walk all the way across town? No, I'm just gonna go next door, hang out with Cartman. But also, kind of from a reader's standpoint, almost, it's sort of what kind of strikes me as a coming of age thing, because like you said, Shirley, these kids, like, do a lot of shit together, and they get into a lot of shit, like, shitty grown situations, and it's like, well, when you're a kid and you go through that, like, traumatic or just, like, defining experience with other people, it kind of ties you to them. And so Cartman may not have, like, a ton in common with the boys besides history, but history's pretty strong, as we all know, and, like, nostalgia and everything.
And I know I said I was done with my points, but you know that's never true. You know I'll continue to always talk and will never shut the fuck up about anything.
But that's what we love about you.
You're right. I'm glad you finally understand that. But very similar to what Rachel said, is they're kind of tied together in a way by going through these crazy situations. And it also, I think that made their friendship stronger, because there are a lot of instances where they are just being kids, you know, where they genuinely all have something to bring to the table, not just in their adult-like characteristics, you know, their wisdom or their problematic behaviors, but in their childlike aspects of their personality. You know, they all have qualities that are very representative of children and how they play. You know, they all still play very well together, even though, you know, the stick of truth and the kingdom of Koopa Keep and the elves versus wizards kind of thing is somewhat like adult in its tones and everything. It is very reminiscent of just kids being kids. So I think that's also a big part of why they all stick together, is because they are able to play really, really well together like regular kids would.
For sure. Are you ready to go on to the next question?
Yeah, about time.
Okay, MO 2018 also asked us, if Kenny were to go through a season without his hood, how could you imagine it playing out, and in what scenario could that happen?
See, I could totally imagine that happening with, like, I feel like they would still do something to obstruct his face. I feel like that's always going to be something that they'll do, because they've had moments without his hood pretty frequently, like with Mysterion and everything. In season 23, which we'll talk about later, he's got a baseball cap that hides his face. He's had a mask covering his face in the Meet the Jeffersons episode. It's a running joke, and it's very, representative of Kenny's character. So I feel like if he were to go without a hood, I feel like they would find some way with either like camera angles or props to obstruct his face, which would still be funny. I'd love to see how they would get creative with it, if they would. It would kind of suck if they just had one thing to substitute that. If he just wore a baseball cap the entire season, that would be, not that funny. But I think it would open up a lot of ways for the writers to really be creative with different ways, because they've shown that they can do that before, and as for him losing it, a situation, he's poor. What if it just finally breaks and they can't afford a new one?
Good point. I guess the only really scenario I could see it happening in is, I think, just Matt and Trey want to try something new. I mean, they're in their 23rd season at this point. They're like, I guess we could just do a season where Kenny doesn't have the hood on and see how it works. I think that has potential to be really kind of a cool thing for them to do, especially because it's so easy for them to just go back if they don't like it. And I would kind of like to see them experiment with that, just because they can add Kenny so much more to the plot now if we understand what he's saying.
Not to be a cynic or anything, but unfortunately I don't see this happening anytime at all with these recent seasons, mostly because Kenny is not only quite literally dead in the show, he's very much figuratively dead. They really don't use him very frequently. They haven't much in years. Now, I think this would have been a really plausible trope back in, like, seasons 4 through maybe 7, where we had Kenny dying finally and Kenny was still getting killed off very frequently. I think that'd be something really cool. I'm not saying that they couldn't do it now, but I feel like it would most definitely fit the tone of those seasons, Not saying they could never do it, but again, I feel like we've missed that opportunity because they don't talk about Kenny anymore.
Yeah, agreed. They barely use Kenny as it is, so they wouldn't, it'd make a whole big difference and change just to add him in more. They don't use him anyway, so I mean, wishful thinking, but yeah, it's probably not going to happen.
Probably not. Are you ready to move on to the next question?
I am, and this is the one that you and me were really excited about. Okay, you ready?
Oh, yes.
Okay, what would you imagine the boys' futures being like? What would their lives through high school all the way through marriage be like? Shirley, you want to get started?
I don't know. Do you even want me to get started on this? Because it's extensive.
Yes, because I want to wait. See what you say first.
Well, I've had headcanons about it a lot, honestly. Just because I love thinking about the boys. Again, because they are, in a sense, grown up now. Anyway, they still have a lot of childlike aspects about them. They still go through childish situations. But they've been thrown into a lot of adult situations where very mature characteristics or immature characteristics kind of show their face. I think I'll just talk about the main 4, really, because, I've had headcanons for just about everything. Really, I can see Kyle moving out of South Park. I really see himself distancing from that small town. Not, completely, and maybe not necessarily on bad terms, but with his brains and his beliefs, I feel like as an adult, it would be really out of character for him to just stay stagnant in this small kind of hick town. I see him as somebody who's really, progressive, somebody who wants to continue forward. I think he could be, his character and his personality is very is very in line with professions like similar like his father. He could be like a lawyer, or he could work. Hell, I could even see him like being high level doctorates or working in academia. You know, I think he's got a lot of smarts, so I think it would kind of hold his character back if he stayed in South Park. I personally think if he ever grows up, I don't think that's happening, but I would see him moving out. Stan, I kind of see as the dude with like 2 divorces under his belt a little
and they're both to Wendy.
They're both to Wendy. Honestly, I've thought about it so much. Like, he and Wendy have been so on and off. Like, it's hilarious. And their relationship is also treated very adult-like. A lot of the times, their relationship is used to portray very adult situations with relationships. So I would see them being like high school sweethearts and getting married, only to get divorced like 3 years later, and then maybe get like a drunken hookup next year later, and then getting married while they're drunk again, you know. But I mean, not to make Stan miserable or anything, but I think he's definitely, I feel like he's kind of, in a way, knowing what his dad does as he's a child, I feel like he would very much likely try his best to be the opposite of his own father. You know, I could see him being a parent, like, in a pretty good one at that too. You know, and he's also, Stan is meant to represent Trey a lot. You know, both Matt and Trey are parents now. I could really honestly see both Kyle and Stan being parents as well. Do you want to talk about them a little bit?
Sure, just to give your throat a break. A lot of what you said I actually agree with. Definitely with Kyle, he would definitely move out of South Park like the first chance he got. I see him as this guy who just kind of wants to like leave this old town behind and just go out into the world and do really, really cool things. Especially with Kyle's personality. Like you said, he's like so smart, so driven. And he hasn't like really shown a particular interest in any like profession, but he seems like he would be so good at whatever he set his mind to. Like, just for example, like the crackhead baby episode, he like drew up an entire like orphanage for the baby, so like he could do architecture. Or like the one episode where Cartman's like a psychic, he like does legit police work, and like, you know, because like there's so many things where like Kyle just does shit and he gets it done and he can like do whatever he wants to do. I could see Kyle being a parent too. But a lot of the times I feel like especially because like I feel like he parents like Ike a lot, just from being like protective, a good older brother, and also the fact that like all the parents in South Park are like fucking morons, and he kind of has to. So, in Kyle's future, I would like for him to find love, because he has so far been pretty unlucky in that respect.
Like, when I first got into South Park, like, my favorite ship, for whatever reason, was like Kyle and Bebe. I don't really know why. I just thought, like, and of course we all headcanon adult Bebe as like this beautiful, voluptuous, hot chick, and I think Kyle deserves a thick bitch when he gets older. I think Twig Boy deserves a thick, hot wife.
Oh my god.
Honestly. And he respects women, so it would come to him naturally. I do definitely think he deserves love. And I think out of all of them, I think he would be, like, the best parent.
He'd be the best husband, too, I think.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Very vanilla sex, though, I feel like. I don't think that boy is cute.
How dare you? I'm gonna have to disagree. I think that Kyle's wife, whoever she is, she's getting her back blown out every night.
No, you're a liar. Kyle is the one getting pegged by his beautiful, voluptuous wife.
Okay, I agree to disagree. Okay, as far as Stan goes, I mostly agree with you. I feel like Stan would be the kind of guy that, like, he kind of ventures out of the town in his youth, but I feel like I could see him definitely, like, coming back to South Park and, like, settling down when he's older. Because, like, this place has kind of always been home for him, after he does his, like, youthful drunken exploring of the world. He kind of wants to come back. I could definitely picture Stan having like a really long, lengthy on again, off again relationship with Wendy, as that's kind of portrayed in the show. I could also see him being a parent, but just like with Kyle. I mean, not with Kyle, but as far as careers, I don't know, because Stan, kind of my dream for him is I feel like he kind of goes out on his own and he tries stuff and he never really finds like what he loves. And it's especially hard because I can picture Stan kind of struggling with addiction a lot throughout his whole life, especially because at the end of the You're Getting Old plotline, like it's revealed that he still like struggles with alcohol. Yeah, he's still very much like is using still kind of. And so I could see that being a big part of his life, but of course I love Stan, so my happy ending for him is that he always ends up like beating it and becoming clean because he doesn't want to be like his dad, especially this recent season because Randy's the fucking worst. And the best part of the season is that like this Marches all hate him. It's so funny.
That's easily the best part of the Randy storyline is the Marshes all hating him at the end. And I'm glad you brought up like the struggling with his addiction thing because that made me think of like potential careers. I wouldn't see him. I've realized like looking back, music is a huge part. Like in Trey's life, music is a huge part of Stan's life. You know, he's always like writing music and Guitar Queero and all that. There's he cares a lot about it. So I could always see that maybe not being his like full job, but like a side hustle that always keeps him going. You know, he could be like a fucking SoundCloud rapper for all I care.
Oh my god, no.
He would just be happy doing music. I could see him in the future like doing small things with music and maybe making a little bit of money off of it. You know, maybe he's at a job that's just like a secure job, but he's still happy like creating music. I think that could definitely be like an interesting storyline for adult Stan.
I think that's a great point. I kind of forgot about the music thing, but I don't really see that as his full career. I see it much more as like a hobby that's a big part of his life. I feel like he's much more like the dad that like plays songs for his kids on the guitar, and like they tolerate it to a certain point. Like it is kind of annoying, but also like kind of cute. I also see him possibly like coaching, possibly like baseball or football. I feel like Stan would be a great coach. And my dream job for Stan is that he comes back to South Park and he takes over Big Gay Al's pet sanctuary.
Oh my gosh, that's perfect. Oh my god, that's perfect. Wow, you were a true fan there. You just won Fan of the Year.
Thank you.
Like, this perfect thing. Matt and Trey, give us a call. Your series finale, we've got it covered. It's a Step into the Future episode. Now, I think I'm ready to move on to Cartman. Cartman, I have really just like a simple thing for him. He's just a neckbeard that lives in his mom's basement. Like, is he really going to be... But the thing is, with Cartman, he could take one of two routes. It's one or two, for me at least. It's that, or, because he's so manipulative, he becomes incredibly successful. Like, that's the thing, is he's actually a very successful businessman, for the most part, in a lot of ways. Cartman land, yes and no. But, I think it could be one of those two things, really. He's either at home, which personally for me, because I love to hate him, I would love to see him just being a neckbeard thinking that he's hot shit, you know? Like, I would love for him to think that he's got such a cool career, like, selling, like, an OnlyFans account or whatever. I would love for him to think that he's on top, but actually just living in his mom's basement for the rest of her life. He's always going to mooch off of her. That's, like, no matter what route. He will always mooch off of his mom. But not even going to lie, I could see him building, like, a capitalistic empire, with, like, a fucking fast food chain or some shit. Selling, like, literal ass burgers. And, like, because he is a successful business character.
I have to totally agree with you on this. I think Cartman will either be, like, a fat, homeless loser, or he'll, like, rule the fucking world. Like, there's no in between.
There's no in between. Because he can do both. he can do the side of me that wants a super happy ending would just put him in the basement, it would just leave him there and him think that he's hot shit. But honestly, most likely because of the kind of world that we live in and the kind of world that Cartman lives in, I could see him being like completely like totally successful, having like being the new Mr. Garrison, of South Park, and running for president, and of course getting votes because everybody's stupid. But, he definitely could be successful. At first, it felt kind of easy saying, like, oh, of course he's just a loser in his mom's basement. But, no, he could definitely be, like, he'll always be lonely. He'll always be a sad sack of shit, and he's never going to get better. But he can make that coin. He can make that coin.
Yeah, it's kind of a toss-up for me, but one of the things kind of leaning towards him being more successful is that I kind of see him as more like Kyle, where he's much more ambitious and driven, and I can't really see him wanting to stay in South Park. That's just my opinion, but...
I don't know. I could see him staying in South Park because he wants to mooch off of his mom. I could definitely see that, but I could see his business going outside of South Park. That's the thing. I think he would kind of stay stationary there because, like, that's what's comfortable for him. But 100%, I could maybe, like, afterwards see him, like, moving forward. But I think he would probably prefer staying in that, like, little corner. But who knows, He's a piece of shit, and I love to hate him.
It's funny because, like, Cartman's, like, arguably the biggest and like most popular character of the show, but like I don't really have many thoughts about him in the future and like his personal life because I just don't care about him that much.
I think he's a great plot device. He's a beautifully written character. Don't fucking care for him, really. I'm not gonna write any huge analyses necessarily on him like I will for Kyle because I love Kyle with all my heart.
I just think I just think Stan, Kenny, and Kyle are much more interesting characters.
Oh, and speaking of Kenny, I have a lot of things about Kenny. First of all, in my head, Kenny is 100% a queer dude. He is 100%. I could see him being just like the biggest slut, continuing to be like the biggest slut of his life. But like, honestly, because of the situation he grows up in, I would love to see him be successful as well, maybe not like Kyle or potential Cartman levels, but I would love to see him, what if he becomes like a fucking TikToker or some shit, like a popular like social media artist. And I think with his background, he sees what his parents do and he actively tries to be better than them. And he has a really good moral code. Kyle is a very much like obvious moral code. He's supposed to be that voice of reason, and he's supposed to represent the solutions in the storylines. But Kyle's solutions are very like on a very big like macro level. They're supposed to solve like larger issues, whereas Kenny's moral compass is very much on like an intimate level. With like his sister, you have those really, really soft plot lines with him where, Kenny's not like saving the entire town or trying to speak this entire huge moral code, but he's doing something on a very small micro level that's making a very specific situation better, so I could really see him taking care of Karen for the rest of his life and being a really awesome older brother. He already is like a really cool older brother. I love the relationship dynamic that they have because it's a really unique one to South Park. There really isn't, besides Ike and Kyle, there really isn't something that specifically sweet between siblings. But I could still totally see him being a slut and being so gay at it, and I'd love that for him. But I could also see him, taking charge and just actively being better than his parents. I could see him maybe not having all the money in the world, but really like, I think he's like a total hustler. He gets the job done. He's probably like a lot more determined than his parents were. And also I could see him maybe not being like a father specifically, but like a father figure to a lot of people. Like he's done to Karen. I feel like he's a comforting figure for a lot of people in the community, especially just the people who are like younger than him.
He's like the new chef.
He is the new chef. God damn, why do you put these words into my mouth and make them sound good?
So again, I kind of agree with a lot of what you said. What I think Kenny, out of all of them, definitely stays in South Park. Like, that's his home.
Oh, definitely.
Yes. He kind of plants his roots there. I definitely think he ends up being not like super successful, but obviously more successful than like his parents. But he is. I think Kenny's like such a caregiver, as you can see with Karen and him just like helping out his friends, especially in like the Cthulhu episodes. And I see Kenny like staying there and kind of like taking up the Mysterion mantle and kind of like staying and being total superhero and like helping out his town at night, and like, because this is his place, it's where he was born, he loves South Park, and he feels like it's almost his like responsibility to like keep people safe and do everything he can for them. They're like superhero by day or by night, and then I feel like by day he definitely like works in like construction or something, because I feel like that is like the most consistent job in South Park, is that town's always getting destroyed, so they need someone to fix it. Kenny, as far as like his sexuality goes, I don't know, for like queerness, I feel like Stan is much more likely to be like bisexual. I can see that for Stan. The other three, kind of. I mean, Kenny, I see him as mostly straight, but like he'll kind of do anything. He's kind of open.
That's what I totally think. I see like, not like in a disrespectful or bad way. I see like Kenny as like a very and a lot of people, I've actually seen, this is kind of like a popular theory, or it was at one point, that Kenny, like adult Kenny, is just like a really good like sex worker, you know, because he's just so, that's like, he's pretty sexual. He's like one of the most sexualized characters, so it kind of fits into like his adult role and everything. But I love the Mysterion. I was gonna bring that up as well, because I could see him 100% staying in South Park and really just being the caregiver for that town. I could see him improving South Park in a way that's like, again, on that like micro level.
Yes, and I maybe this is just because I love like the Mysterion episodes where he's like trying to find out his origin or whatever, but I definitely can see older Kenny like continuing to investigate that and try to figure out where he comes from and everything. That could be really kind of interesting content for Kenny. I also kind of agree that he would be, I don't know if he would be a sex worker in my like fantasy, but he's definitely like, he gets around. He's very slutty. And he cares a lot about people and like women in his life, but I feel like he doesn't really get into relationships that are that serious. And I feel like he definitely doesn't have a kid of his own. One, because he already is so busy with like Karen in the town, and two, because I feel like Kenny, as he gets older, is like worrying that his dying thing would be genetic, and he like wouldn't want to risk passing that on.
Yeah. I also kind of see Kenny is easily going to be the hottest one of the group. 100%. He's going to be like the most attractive, like, ladies' man or man's man out there. And I'm pretty sure like a lot of fans kind of agree. He is, usually when he's drawn, he's very much like that attractive figure. So I just want him to be like successful, but in his own way, you know? That's plausibly what I see him the most as.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, thank you very much, MO 2018, for the questions, especially that last one, because we had a blast answering it.
We were so excited about that. Like, the second Rachel showed me that question, the second I looked it up for myself, I was like, oh yeah, this is what we've been waiting for. If you want us to go into futures of the other characters as well, please let us know, because I've got some theories on, like, a lot of, like, really obscure characters as well. You know, I love the female characters of South Park, so I have a bunch of them. So yeah, if you want like any specific characters, we would love to talk about their futures.
Yeah, just let us know. Like Shirley said, give us like more questions or suggestions of things you want to see from us in the future. This question was a lot of fun to answer, but also kind of like exposed me a little bit, kind of revealing how much I fucking think about this show and these characters. It's kind of embarrassing.
It's a little bit embarrassing because I'm like, oh wow, I'm talking about my headcanons that I've had since I was like 14.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's kind of shake off the shame a little bit and move forward. Rocky Stone asked us some questions as well. Do you want to dive right in?
Let's do it.
All right. Question number 1 from Rocky Stone is, what was your reaction when you found out there's a huge shipping and / fandom in the South Park fandom?
Go ahead.
Okay, I guess... I don't know. I think it's so funny the way this question is worded, where they're like, I don't know, maybe this is just me, like, interpreting it wrong, but, like, it seems like they think that we're, like, these older fans that, like, just found out. Like, no, I was literally, like, 13 reading South Park fan fiction in middle school, like, in class. Like, so riveted by it. I am very familiar.
That's the thing, is when I first, like, I mean, I knew about South Park when I was really, really little. Of course, I wasn't allowed to watch it. Whatever. Like, neither of my parents really watched it. So I was already at the shipping age when I found out about South Park. So the thing is it really that I discovered the shipping element? It was that I anticipated it. Like, I knew. This wasn't my first rodeo with fandom, okay? I can't even begin to imagine, like, my first encounter with, like, fan fiction or anything. I wouldn't be able to tell you what the first one was for me, because there have been so many. It's always kind of been a part of my, like, prepubescent life and up to adulthood. It's not something that I'm into as much anymore. I still do have, like, my ships and everything. I care about them. Like, for whatever reason, don't know why, I still think Kyle and Bebe is really cute. For a really long time, I loved, like, Kenny and Butters. My sister still does. Like, that's her, like, favorite ship ever. I think it's adorable. Her favorite episode is Going Native just because of that dynamic. But, you know, it was something that I definitely, like, anticipated going in, you know? I knew, like, as soon as I got into the show, I'm like, oh, wow, I can't wait to read the fan fiction about this. Oh, wow, I can't wait to see the fan art. And, of course, I drew, like, a lot of fan art of it, so it wasn't something that I necessarily stumbled upon. It was something that I 100%, like, anticipated and was excited about. More or less, you know, to be disappointed by a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, mine's a little different, because I first started watching this show when I was 11, which is probably too young, but oh well.
It's the age of the boys.
Yeah. And so I kind of had a journey with kind of, like, learning more about the show and interacting with it online. I think a few years, like, I was 12 or 13, I think, when I was, like, really into South Park and wanting to know more about it. So I, like, looked up videos, and people had, like, shipping videos, and I was like, oh, what's this? Kind of, like, that's how I kind of discovered it. And then I was also at the age where I was, like, on fanfiction.net, and so I would look up South Park and see what you would get. As far as ships... Yeah, okay, so as it is with all fan fiction, most of it's, like, terrible, but there are, like, some good gems on there, and I still have those frickin' fanfics, like, saved to my flash drive. I still read them sometimes.
Good literature is good literature.
Yeah, so as far as my ships back then, I was, like, a fan of, like, the Stan and Kyle ship when I was younger. And those are so funny, because this is always the formula of that fan fiction. It's like high school, Stan is the quarterback of the football team, and then Kyle is, like, valedictorian, nerd valedictorian, and this always happens in every single South Park fan fiction. Togan always throws, like, a huge party at his house, and everyone goes there. I don't know why, but that was always a thing. And I think it was because it was, like, the first time that like, all these kids would, like, be left unsupervised, like, with alcohol, and then once the beer comes out, you know that, like, something gay is about to happen. Because like they're all drunk and, like, not control themselves, and then so, like, usually Stan or Kyle, or I guess it's whoever the fanfiction is about, they would, like, end up doing something sexual while they're drunk, and then the rest of the fanfiction is about them, like, reckoning with it and, like, having all these feelings. And let me tell you, it was riveting.
I'm not even gonna lie, I could analyze a fucking Kyle fanfiction far better than I ever could something like The fucking Great Gatsby, okay? Like, there are some fan fictions out there that are true, honest-to-God literature. And not even, like, just in the South Park fandom. There are so many other fandoms that I've had where I've seen some of, like, the most beautifully, eloquently written storylines and plot lines for shit like Hey Arnold and Corpse Bride, okay? Like, there's some fucking beautiful, talented people out there. So it's actually kind of exciting, and I love that you just completely tore to shreds every single Stan and Kyle fanfiction out there, because that's exactly what it is.
Hey, you know what, though? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
oh, and there's another one, though. Before the whole Tweek and Craig thing was, like, actually a thing. Before it was, like, actually canon.
Oh my god. Okay, so every Tweek and Craig fic is like this. So, like, Tweek is always like...
Okay.
Oh, okay, do you want to? Okay, so Tweek is like a full-blown nut job. Like, he's a psycho in all of them. And then Craig is always like this, like, bad boy cool guy who, like, sits in the back and, like, is constantly, like, chain smoking a cigarette for some reason. And then it's always, like, Tweek being like, oh my god, Craig, I can't live without you. And then Craig's like he's trying to be cool or something. Like, the way they categorize Craig is so funny. Like, I don't know why people think he's so cool.
He's a fucking loser with a guinea pig.
And do you hear his voice? He probably has asthma. He can't afford to be chain smoking in the back of a school.
Furthest thing, he is basically like the embodiment of RARXD on the scale of edginess. Like, and the thing is, every single one is written with Craig pushing away his feelings. Craig is never the one initiating it. Craig is always fighting it. Tweek is always the one, like, pursuing it, and Craig is always just like, no, I can't love you. You're too good for me, you know, I'll just end up hurting you.
Yep.
It's always that. It's always that. Which, not complaining, it's a formula that's working, you know.
Yeah, Craig is always fully like Bender from The Breakfast Club in every fic.
We love, and there's really no straight couple fan fictions. It really that much in. You don't even really have, like, Stan and Wendy fanfics much, but maybe it's because they're a boring hetero couple.
I'm trying to think of other, like, common tropes for fanfiction. I know that part of your, I think, headcanon from Kenny comes from fanfiction, because, like, in every single one, he's, like, always in the background doing something slutty.
Oh, yeah. Always. I mean, I'm sorry, Kenny in my mind is just a slut, and he's good at it.
Oh, you know what was my, like, guilty pleasure ship? Is that I used to... Okay, so I guess I'm gonna prove you wrong that there's no hetero South Park fanfiction, because I used to read a lot of, like, Cartman and Wendy fanfiction.
Ew! That's, like, the worst!
That's why I said guilty pleasure. Don't shame me.
Cartman doesn't deserve love.
No, you're totally right. But the thing is, it's just... I mean, because... I have, like I said, I have, like, a few South Park fanfictions that I think are so good, and I, like, still have them and read them, and I think what they're, like, Stan, Kyle, Tweek and Craig, and then Cartman and Wendy, and I think it's just because, I don't know, the way that this person would, like, write Cartman as older, it's, like, so funny and so, like, true to his character, and I especially love South Park fanfiction because, like, it's not just, like, because all fanfiction is just, like, a cheesy, like, romance novel. That's all it is. But South Park is kind of nice because the show itself is so, like, campy and ridiculous that it lets the fanfiction writers kind of make up their own really funny scenarios, and it's okay for the characters to be really funny and just kind of ridiculous and stupid, and that for me makes him, like, a lot of fun to read. I haven't read him in a long time, but I can understand looking back why I was into it.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like... And, you know, we're gonna, like, outwardly out ourselves for being cringy fanfic writers. Both of us have written, like, South Park fanfiction. Rachel's is especially good.
Oh, thank you. I actually have one on my account right now.
She's actually, like, a good writer. Hold on just a second. I'm gonna see if that's the dog really quick. We'll just edit this part out.
Alright, hold on. While you're gone, I'll plug some of my shit. Maybe in the description I'll put the link to my archive of our own account where I have a South Park fanfiction to read. Also, ignore Shirley. She's chipping over there. Chirping. Sorry. Maybe let me know in the comments if you want me to release the sacred texts. So I'll share with you guys some of my favorite fan fictions that I have had saved over the years.
Oh yeah, and there's plenty of them. There's plenty of really good things. Are you coming over? My little foster dog, the good one, not the asshole that keeps barking. He's over here. He's just chilling. He's adorable. Aww.
So the second question was, how did you first find out about shipping? But I feel like we kind of covered that. So do you want to just go to the third one?
We didn't even, the question didn't even ask us about fan fiction. We just went into a whole...
I know. Like, literally, they just asked about shipping, and we, like, fully... we were like, oh, you don't know about this?
We just exposed ourselves.
Okay, so the third question is... What do you think of the haters who rant about how shipping ruins the fandom? There's no harm in drawing fan art and stuff. It's not like it hurts anyone. It's just people being happy and having fun drawing what they love. I think, well, Shirley especially draws fan art, so maybe you should get started with this one.
Sure, I'll definitely talk about this. And I do definitely agree. There's... People are totally 100% allowed to have their opinions about it. And some people, I'm definitely like, if you don't like fan fiction or fan art or anything or shipping wars like that, there's definitely ways to not be part of it, There's a way to just ignore it, and I just don't like, I think there's definitely like an immature part of every fandom that has like these shipping wars. And sure, like, I'm somebody who is definitely like, ugh, the Cartman and Kyle shipment, it bothers me a lot, but I'm not gonna go out and hate on somebody. But what I will hate on, because there are limits to everything, I believe, maybe let's not draw Nazi fan art of them, because that happened a couple years ago where a Kaiman shipper drew Cartman as a Nazi with a chained up and beaten Holocaust clad Kyle, and was just like, ooh, so romantic. I'm like, that's a little bit anti-Semitic and not good. So there's always, and of course there's, because they are children, it does open up to things like pedophilic kind of drawings and things that depict minors. That's like, even though they do embody like a lot of these adult like characteristics and situations, it's still very much uncomfortable when people draw things that are sexual when they're still young characters. That's just, there are limits where I think it can dive into ethically problematic subjects. So in a lot of ways, yes, if you're angry and upset about that, 100%, that's valid. But if it's just general like shipping wars, I feel like that's a little bit more of an immature part of the fandom that I feel like most fans grow out of at some point. So 100%, let people ship what they want, but also keep in mind that certain things can be extremely, I hate using this word, but like problematic and just ethically tone deaf,
Yeah, I definitely 100% agree with what you said, especially about all the Nazi imagery and the pedophilia and everything like that. I guess it's kind of funny because I just got done talking about how I used to be so into the shipping part of the fandom, but I sometimes can be the hater when it comes to shipping, especially because I'll be on Tumblr trying to interact with the South Park fandom, and especially on that website, all they care about is the shipping part of it, which can be kind of annoying. So an episode will come out and people will be like, oh my god, Tweek and Craig stood next to each other in the background, and I'm like, okay, but does anyone actually want to talk about the episode?
There definitely are certain platforms where shipping is more prevalent than others. Tumblr is very much just a shipping-based fandom, that's really the highest concentration of fans, are the ones that really enjoy shipping, and if that's what you enjoy, 100%. But sometimes people can get annoyed, and honestly, if that's the majority of those people, just don't visit those sites or don't engage in it if it's something that bothers you. I think a lot of people do it just to be angry. and to kind of be immature. It's definitely like a part of being in a fandom, not justifying it or anything, but there are some times when people just take it a little bit too far. But there are a lot of online platforms that have different types of fans, and post different types of content based on their fandoms. So, you know, if you're not enjoying the type of content posted on one platform, there are plenty of others that post content that you probably would enjoy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know at least, oh shit, that the Twitter, I think fandom is much different than Tumblr, but, because I'm, like, never the person who is, like, mean to people for shipping or is bullying anyone. I just kind of, because I myself have enjoyed shipping in the past, so, but I can sometimes just internally be annoyed with it, because I'm like, okay, well, I kind of wanted to talk about, like, the jokes and, like, the satire and what they're commenting on, but, like, all anyone cares about is the shipping, but that's really the only part of it that annoys me.
Oh, yeah, but, again, just to kind of answer the question, people should definitely enjoy what they want to do, as long as it's not, like, actively, you know, harmful, which, again, that's a very, very small minority of fandoms. So I definitely don't have an issue with people shipping. They can ship what they want. Of course, I definitely don't understand some of them, and some of them kind of weird me out because of the types of imagery that they'll use to portray it. But as long as it's, you know, not something completely problematic and damaging, I think it's totally fine.
Yeah, I agree. All right, do you want to go to the very last question?
Let's go to the very last question, because we've kept going on long enough.
We've been recording for an hour. So much for a mini-sode.
So much for a mini episode. God damn. I was thinking maybe like 30 minutes. No, I think we spent 30 minutes just talking about fan fiction.
Okay. Okay, so the last question from Rocky Stone is, I'm so curious if your parents or anyone else in your family likes South Park. What do they think of the shipping if they know about it? One of you has a sister who ships Bunny. What are your other relatives' opinions on it?
Well, really the only person that watches South Park is my sister. She'll be really thrilled that you talked about her. So if she'll be listening to this later, so she'll be really excited. Thank you for mentioning her. But definitely, you know, I got Catherine into South Park, and my parents, you know, they're very encouraging and everything. They, you know, they try and be nice about what we like and watch and enjoy, but they don't usually actively participate in it. So I don't really have any other family members that watch it like I do, but I do have the benefit that Catherine watches it just as much, and she's very much into the shipping scene, particularly with Bunny, so, which is Butters and Kenny together.
Yeah, I actually don't have a ton of people in my family that watch the show. My older brother likes it a lot, and he's 9 years older than me, so he was like, he remembers when the show first came out, whereas I was like a baby. And he's the only person in my family that I can think of that likes it like remotely as much as I do, because like I have a few, like my younger brother, or like my stepdad, or other like occasional people in my family. They're like casual fans of the show, and like, but there's no one really besides me and my older brother that like fucking love South Park. And I don't think my brother's aware of shipping or anything. I mean, he's like, what, like 31 now? 32. And so I doubt he's aware of it. But yeah, I'm kind of the South Park super fan in my family.
Yeah, there's always one in the group. It's like a gay cousin. If you don't know who the gay cousin is, you're probably the gay cousin.
It's the same with South Park.
Same with South Park. There's always a South Park super fan. But I think that kind of concludes our thought about that. You know, my parents just really aren't involved with it like we are, but I am lucky that I have the perspective of my sister, who really is into like the shipping. So, I mean, I don't think she has like a whole lot of like, she doesn't have a bunch of them. She just really has that one dedicated, but you know, she really likes it, and she kind of agrees with what we talked about just recently. You know, just ship what you like and enjoy it. Don't try and cause up a stir. There's no need to be nasty. It's just, they're fictional characters, kid. Like, they're fictional fourth graders. You don't really need to get too heated.
Yeah, definitely. Just one more thing about my brother, real quick, is that it's always nice because like he and I both really like the show, and we're both kind of like more like when we get together, because I don't see him that often because he's significantly older than me, and also he lives in the city and I live in the suburbs. But whenever I go to see him, I always end up bringing up South Park because me and him can like really get into it and talk about it, and they're both kind of passionate about like the jokes and the commentary and things like that, and so I always love having that to talk about with him. And then the other day, like the last time I went down to see him in the city, we were like having lunch at this bar, and the bar was playing music, and Landslide came on, and then he turns to me and he goes, "This reminds me of when Stan Marsh's parents got divorced." And I was like, "Oh my god, I love you."
Yeah, I will actually say my sister is definitely on like the more fandom kind of aspect than I am. I'm very much kind of, I like doing the analysis and everything. Of course, I've had like my share of like the shipping and all that jazz. She's a little bit more oriented and kind of like that side of the fandom. So it's kind of interesting getting like both sides, you know. I'm very, but Rachel is my go-to for talking about the analytic side of South Park.
Same. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think that about wraps it up. Do we have any more questions?
No, that's all the questions. Do you have any other announcements or anything?
No, other than please send us more and tell us if you, unless you hate this, you hated this episode and you didn't care at all about what we think about anything.
If they hated this, they're not still listening.
We thank you for anybody who is listening, and definitely keep your eyes open for season 23, because that's probably going to be launched around the same time as this episode, if you actually listen to this one at all. But we really had a lot of fun doing this, you know, like we said before. We definitely do have like time constraints and everything, so there's no way we could really get on a dedicated schedule much like we used to, but we're definitely hopeful to create different kind of content, but still give that shitty South Park Podcasa Bonita flair to it. So thank you guys for listening, and we're really hopeful that you'll give us more questions to answer.
Yeah, and a very special thank you to Rocky Stone and MO 2018 who sent us the questions that we just spent an hour talking about.
Exactly. Like, it was only 4 questions, but damn, we could have made this video a lot longer, but we're sparing you guys in this case.
All right, thanks so much for listening, guys. We'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time. Maybe we should get some outro music. I don't think we could afford that.
Yeah, no, maybe you should just sing something to get us to go on the out.
I'll do the Tegrity Farms outro. Tegrity Farms, Tegrity Farms. Oh, okay, I'm tired of it already. I don't like that. If somebody else wants to make outro music or intro music, that'd be dope. Maybe we'll be like more official.
Yeah, our fans are probably much more talented than we are.
Oh yeah, why do you think we're doing a podcast? Do you think if we were talented, we'd be doing a podcast right now?
Yeah, no. All right, bye guys.
Bye! Thank you for listening to 2 opinionated assholes.